Friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to this series on the genomes of Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. This is the second part to my 12-part series on Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. Sidelkino is a village in Samarskaya Oblast in central Russia, right here. It's around, maybe 1,000 kilometers east of Moscow. It's quite close to Kazakhstan. It's quite pretty much on the border of Tatarstan, Tataria, and Samarskaya Oblast. And there is a lot of Eastern hunter-gatherer genomes from this region, and I'm going to analyze all 12 of these high-quality genomes that I have from this region, from Eastern hunter-gatherers who lived here. So, some big happenings happening outside of the YouTube sphere. I left the Discord server that I was moderating, and I left it to some guys. So if you are on that Discord server and you wanted to use it to talk to me, I guess you can talk to me on YouTube. I will still be replying to you on YouTube. I'm trying to limit my exposure to social media and the internet in general. I want there to be as few ways for certain government agencies to be able to get to me as possible. I want there to be as few ways for them to reach me. So I am quitting. I'm trying to limit my use of such services as Discord and Instagram and such. I'm trying to limit my use of such services. But I will still be uploading on YouTube, and you will still be able to reach me on YouTube. So you can leave your comments if you want to get my opinion on something. Make sure you leave me a comment, and I will get back to you. So this sample, it is a female. She does not have a Y haplogroup, no Y DNA, no Y haplogroup. Her mitochondrial haplogroup is U4D. Very typical mitochondrial lineage for various European hunter-gatherers. And let's go ahead and get into her Nashakot results and see what she looks like. Okay, so it looks like she actually has dark brown eyes. Wow, she's pretty dark. Dark brown eyes, not even brown eyes. She has dark brown eyes at 48% likelihood. She definitely does not have blue or blue with amber or green, which I counted that as the same thing. So she doesn't have blue with amber or green eyes. She does not have hazel eyes. That's there's a 5% likelihood of that, but she does not have hazel eyes. And there's a pretty significant likelihood of brown eyes at 45% likelihood, and there's also a pretty significant likelihood of dark brown eyes for her. So there's pretty much the breakdown is either brown or dark brown eyes for her. For hair color estimate, she pretty much has black hair. This is very precise. There is only a 6% likelihood chance of dark brown hair. And for any other hair color lighter than dark brown, there is less than 1% chance of any of that. There is in fact less than 0.1% chance for any of these hair colors. So she definitely has black hair. And there can be no doubt about this topic. For skin color likelihood distribution, it looks like she has light brown skin. Okay, olive skin is also quite possible for her at 39% likelihood, but she most likely has light brown skin. This is also quite a precise prediction for her. Definitely very interesting. There is pretty much no likelihood of white or palest or dark brown skin for her whatsoever. So this is actually a pretty precise prediction. Wow. So there is no likelihood of any skin tone besides light brown or olive. That's very interesting. So yeah, she's definitely quite dark. I would say based on these pigmentation calls, based on this information, um, who does she resemble? I would say she resembles maybe Iranians, maybe Afghans, maybe Pakistanis. Let's see. And for the hair texture, it looks like she has wavy or straight hair. Curly hair is also possible at 19% likelihood. Kinky hair is out of the picture. So she most likely has straight or wavy hair. Okay. And for the nose shape, she most likely has a snub shaped nose. So she most likely has a rather, I would say, upturned, shorter, upturned, more wider nose shape. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the coloring related variants found in the file and see what's up here. So she does not have any light color variants in this variation, which is a big telltale sign. If you don't have any light color variants in this variation, it is usually a big sign that snipper free will also detect you as having brown eyes. She does not have any light color variants here, so no BH3, also no BH2, also no BH1, so very, very dark. Very, very dark. She has heterozygous genotype in this variation of SLC45A2, which is very interesting because this is actually kind of like a light-ish genotype for a hunter-gatherer from Europe. Because for hunter-gatherers, I notice a lot of them have 0 hair. So this is sort of even a little bit light for a hunter-gatherer. Of course, she has 2 light color variants in this variation of Keto G, so she does have the light skin variants here. And no light pigmentation variants in MC1R, so no predisposition to ginger hair. All right. Let's go ahead and check the phenotype oracle. Let's see what phenotypes she resembles the most. Okay, so the phenotypes she resembles the most is this, which is sort of like an exotic white phenotype, followed by this, which is, well, yes, as I said, that she resembles Afghans, Pakistanis. It makes sense. She's very dark. And finally, this, which is looks like Pakistani, or actually more Indian, even more Indian than Pakistani. And for the mixture of phenotypes, she's getting modeled as a mixture of 50% this plus 50% this. 50% for the closest mixture is actually 50% this, 50% this. The second closest mixture is 50% this plus 50% this. The third closest mixture is 50% this plus 50% this. The fourth closest mixture is 50% this plus 50% that. All right. So you get the gist of it. You pretty much get the gist of it. Very exotic looking. Looks like there's some South Asian-like stuff picking up for the phenotype oracle. So in terms of the closest looks, it looks like the closest phenotype to her is still rather European than this, whatever this is. I think this is called Pamirid, but it's pretty close. I mean, 0.812 versus 0.665. It's pretty close. So even though the closest phenotype is still European, it's still a European one. The non-European phenotype is quite close as well. All right, let's close this. Let's go ahead and look at the biomarkers results. Let's see what her biomarkers predispositions are. Looks like she has a predisposition to higher than average level of vitamin D, really good. Below average level of LDL cholesterol, which is really good, so she has pretty healthy predisposition to that. Above average level of HDL cholesterol, which is also really good stuff for the cholesterol panel. Below average level of glucose, which is really good as well. Average level of hemoglobin, below average blood pressure, really good stuff for the blood pressure panel. High level of iron in the blood. So yeah, from that we already know that she has hemochromatosis variants. So from this result for the iron in the blood, we already know that she's got hemochromatosis variants. She's got a below average level of sex hormone binding globulin, average level of red blood cell count in blood, and higher than average number of base pairs for the telomere length. So slightly above average lifespan. Pretty good stuff. And above average height. Pretty cool. Let's go ahead and say the polygenic risk scores, which is scores for that. So I think I'm gonna try to go quicker and ignore all the stupid stuff and just go through the stuff that's interesting. So she's got a above average odds for hemoglobin E disease, and she's actually got 2 risk variants here. Let's try to look this up in the file and see what we find here. We don't find anything, so it looks like the important variation is not found in the file, unfortunately. She's got way below average odds for migraine, which is good. She's got way below average odds for gout, which is really good. She's got slightly above average odds for thyroid cancer. She's got slightly above average odds for eczema. I'm not really going to talk about the glaucoma panel. It's to vague. Pretty much average for polycystic ovary syndrome, above average for cataracts, very high for age-related macular degeneration, average for rheumatoid arthritis, average for Tourette's, very low for epilepsy, which is really good. Um, let's see what else. Slightly below average for leukemia, whatever. Slightly above average for vitiligo. All right, there might be some risk variants in the HLA gene that contribute to that. She's got slightly below average for myopia. That's pretty good. No risk variants for primary biliary cirrhosis, which is pretty good. Below average for stroke, which is really good. Above average for male pattern hair loss. All right, so she's got 2 times the average odds for male pattern hair loss, and that's quite an interesting score because she's a West Eurasian, a European. Europeans tend to score higher for male odds of male pattern hair loss. Europeans, West Asians, North Africans in general, people who cluster with the west of Eurasia and North Africa tend to score higher for this particular trait. So it's no surprise here. For atrial fibrillation, she's scoring way above the average for that, but I feel like there's not that many SNPs that were found for this. For deep vein thrombosis, no SNPs. Average for unipolar depression, average for bipolar type 1, average for schizophrenia, low for type 2, average for type 1 diabetes. Very high score for Alzheimer's. Wow, that's crazy. So we gotta explore the score for Alzheimer's actually. Let's go ahead and look up the Alzheimer's panel and the result. Let's go through that. So it looks like she has 2 risk alleles for Alzheimer's in this APOE variation, 12 to 61 times higher risk of Alzheimer's than average. So she actually has a risk variance for Alzheimer's in APOE, and that makes sense. That explains the score. And there you go. That's why she's scoring 5.41 times the average odds for Alzheimer's. That explains the score. So that's kind of crazy. All right, so she's definitely got a significantly higher odds for Alzheimer's based on her genotype. She's got a below average odds for multiple sclerosis, which is pretty good. So it probably doesn't have a risk variance for that in an HLA gene. 5 risk variance for breast cancer out of 12. All right, pretty good. 10 risk variance for testicular cancer of 16, and we see 2 risk variants in all the important variants in KITL-G. So it looks like she is quite cooked when it comes to KITL-G variations for testicular cancer, the KITL-G risk variants for testicular cancer. She is quite cooked, all right? But the important thing to remember here is that in the past, testicular cancer and cancers in general were a lot less widespread. And also the important thing to remember is that she's a female, so she does not have testicles. So testicular cancer is not that big of a concern for her, to be honest. Okay, maybe for her male descendants, it is. Actually, testicular cancer is very common in Europeans today. So for her male descendants, it is a big problem. But people of Eastern hunter-gatherer ancestry, Europeans today, like Irish people who have testicular cancer, it is a problem for them. But for her, directly for her, the woman that I'm analyzing today, it is not a problem for her. Okay, celiac disease section. She's got 2 risk variants for celiac disease out of 8. 2 risk variants here. No, not a big deal. Whatever. No risk variants for GSS. Pretty good. 2 risk variants for Crohn's out of 20. Okay, that's interesting. But I don't mark them as important, so I think that's not a big deal. No risk variance for Raffenstein's pretty good. No risk variance for Parkinson's pretty good. Gilbert syndrome, 2 risk variants here. All right, they're common. No big deal. No risk variance for basal cell carcinoma, Peutz-Jeghers. 1 risk variance for hypoplasia. That's kind of crazy. So this risk variance for hypoplasia is like it's not even labeled as as common. So I feel like this might be really rare. Let's look that up and see. Let's look that up and see. I feel like this is a uncommon. Yeah, this is really uncommon. So she's got a really uncommon risk variant for hypoplasia. Really interesting. But I feel like this might be a miscall. I feel like this is most likely a miscall. And the thing that we really have to worry about from this file, like health-wise, the thing that's concerning is the score for Alzheimer's, not this thing. JCD, Jacob Creutzfeldt, 2 risk variants that are common, no big deal. Waardenburg syndrome, no risk variants for that. Allergies, 6 out of 14, pretty typical stuff. Familiar hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, no risk variants for that. Irritable bowel syndrome, 2 common risk variants, no big deal. Congenital sensitivity. No, no, I don't see any risk variance for anything else. Yep, I don't see anything that's concerning. I got one for myosclerosis here, but that's not no big deal. And I got familiar to aortic aneurysm. I got common risk variance here, so that's no big deal, really. That's really no big deal. Those are common risk variance here. So this is kind of uncommon, but I feel like I don't really trust this too much, because if you find one risk variant like that is uncommon like that, it is usually going to come together with something else in the same region, and it's usually not going to be just by itself alone. So in this case, it was by itself alone, and I feel like in this case it's because it's a miscall. It's because it's a problem with the data, and that's why I don't trust it too much. But the Alzheimer's thing, that's for real. That's for realsies. That one I trust. So the Alzheimer's thing is for realsies. Let's go ahead and look at the um, monogenic traits portion of the result and explore it. So it looks like for Warrior versus Warrior, this sample is scoring definitely Warrior phenotypes, lower dopamine reuptake and higher dopamine levels, lower stress resiliency. So based on her genotype in COMT, MAOA, and MAOB genes, she's got the predisposition to being a Warrior, which means having slower dopamine reuptake and higher dopamine levels. So definitely, well, look, if you look at the genotypes here, she's got AA in COMT, MET variation, so MET in COMT. What else? She's got TT in this variation of MAOA. So she's got at least two genotypes that have to do with Warrior in COMT and MAOA, and all these other genotypes. She's also got TT here, which is also a Warrior genotype. All these other genotypes also have to do with Warrior. They are all pretty much linked to each other. So she's definitely a Warrior. This is probably one of the highest. This might be the highest percentage for Warrior you can actually score with my tool. I'm not even sure myself, because I'm not sure what is the highest percentage you can score. I never did like unit tests to figure out what's the highest percentage you can score, but I think this might be the highest percentage for Warrior you can score, and it's a very European thing to score. Like there is probably in terms of neuroscience and the ethnic distribution of scores, it's a very European trait to be a Warrior. For dopamine D2 receptor sites, looks like she's scoring intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptors. Okay, so she's pretty much intermediate in that regard. So intermediate predisposition to such conditions as schizophrenia and bipolar. All right. And for levels of 5-HT and serotonin, she's got a predisposition to lower or intermediate levels of 5-HT, so slightly higher predisposition to such conditions as depression and anxiety. And this is actually sort of like the opposite of a European genotype. Europeans tend to have higher levels of 5-HT and serotonin. So this is like sort of the opposite of a European genotype. In this case, this is not a very typical European predisposition, you could say. And you can also see here that she has short form 5-HT TLPR, and this also contributes to the score. But she also has all these other genotypes in HT R2A that contribute to this score. When it comes to autism panel, it looks like she has a predisposition to lower odds of autism, which is definitely really good, really interesting. When it comes to the results for lactose persistence, actually, did I skip anything? I did skip something. Yeah, she does not have dwarfism. Really good to see. I usually talk about that. And for lactose persistence, it looks like she has higher or intermediate odds of lactose persistence. Really good to see. So she's got so she's got higher or intermediate odds of higher or intermediate odds of lactose intolerance. So she's actually lactose intolerant. Wow. So she does not have any variants for lactose persistence. She's most likely to be lactose intolerant. But of course, there is still that 47% chance of being intermediate. That is because even with all these genotypes that have to do with lactose intolerance, you still don't really know that you're lactose intolerant. You still don't really know that for sure, because lactose persistence is a lot more polygenic than just these four variations, right? So it's a lot more polygenic. So there's a lot more variations that contribute to the actual phenotype of being lactose persistent versus lactose intolerant than these four traits, these four SNPs. For OXTR and empathy gene, she is scoring a predisposition to the average level of empathy based on these four genotypes. She's got an average level of empathy. For diabetes, remember she was scoring average for both. So, okay. Hemochromatosis, yes. So she's got two copies of the H63D variant and likely suffers from hemochromatosis. That's what we see here. So she's got two copies of the H63D variant. All right, she's got the Celtic curse. Very interesting. So she's an Eastern hunter-gatherer, and she's got the Celtic curse. I might put that in the thumbnail. For Alzheimer's, we already know that she's got two risk alleles for Alzheimer's in the APOE gene. For multiple sclerosis, no risk variants in HLA, pretty good stuff. For cardiovascular disease panel, she's got intermediate odds of cardiovascular issues. That's pretty good stuff. For myopia panel, she's got the G allele in this variation, which leads to a reduced risk of myopia and slightly better eyesight. I think she was scoring below average for risk of myopia. Let's look that up, actually. I'm curious to see now what she scores for that. Yes, she scores below average for the risk of myopia. That makes sense because that S&P contributes big time to the score for myopia. All right, now looking at the facial morphology panel, she's got European genotype in all the EDAR variations. All right, actually, I missed this part. She's got one HLA risk allele in both the HLA variations for vitiligo panel. So she actually has some risk variants in the HLA gene for vitiligo. That's very interesting. But anyway, for facial morphology panel, she's got European genotype in all the EDAR variations. She's got a genotype for longer mid-face length, a genotype for more upturned nose, intermediate nose size, thinner eyebrows, and genotype for lower odds of missing teeth. All right. She does not have micropenis. Well, she does not have a penis at all. She's a female, but she also does not have a micropenis, which is really good to see. She's got impaired muscle performance, likely endurance athlete rather than strength or power athlete, which is really good to see as well. And she's also not an Asian flusher, and she's got lower risk of alcoholism, which is really good to see as well. All right. She does not have any of the albinism mutations, and that's pretty cool. Okay. For MTHFR panel, she's got none of the genotypes that are unhealthy, so no genotypes that lead to increased homocysteine levels. That's pretty good. So for the homocysteine panel, I think we're going to see below average, reduced, or average homocysteine levels. That's my prediction. I'm not sure exactly, but unless she has like a bunch of risk variants for homocystinuria, we are going to see below average homocysteine levels for the homocysteine panel. She's got average odds for alcoholism, pretty good. And okay, we're gonna skip leukemia. We already saw the risk score for that. It's average. For rare diseases and traits panel, let's see. Does she have any rare diseases? She's got 220 times increased odds of ankylosing spondylitis. We already saw that. She's got. Is there anything else? I don't see anything else. So there's the only rare disease that she has is that she's got 20 times increased risk of ankylosing spondylitis, whatever that is. I don't even know what that is. Whatever. She's got what else? She's got what else? Typical odds of baldness. We already saw that. So she's got higher odds of baldness in the AR gene. She does not have the A allele here that protects from going bald. I think the A allele is most common in sub-Saharan Africans, so she's not a sub-Saharan African. She doesn't have the protective variant from going bald. She has two protective variants here that protect from going from HIV. 90% reduction in HIV viral load. She's quite protected from HIV. She does not have any protective variants from Canavan syndrome. Doesn't have any risk variants from Canavan syndrome. All right. No risk variants for Crohn's disease. Pretty good. She has for allergies panel. I don't typically talk about allergies, but in this case, I think I will. She has a genotype that leads to 3 times increased risk for developing a peanut allergy. It's pretty interesting. For HLA gene panel, she has a predisposition to lower odds of autoimmune disease, despite having heterozygous genotype for both the HLA variants. For the vitiligo panel, she is still scoring lower odds of autoimmune disease. So overall, her HLA genotype is pretty good, pretty healthy. For the MTRR gene panel, it looks like she's got one risk allele for disorders of intracellular collagen metabolism right here. No risk variants here or here. So 1 out of 6 risk alleles is pretty typical for the MTRR gene panel. Pretty typical, pretty good stuff. For the CBS gene panel, that's pretty much exactly what I expected. She's scoring still lower or intermediate levels of homocysteine. And she actually has one risk variant for homocystinuria. But despite having one risk variant for that, she's still scoring lower or intermediate. That's kind of crazy. But that's because she's got these two genotypes that lead to lower levels of homocysteine as well. That's because of these two genotypes. So there's other genotypes besides the ones in MTHFR that lead to lower levels of homocysteine. So because of that genetic predisposition, she's scoring below average level of homocysteine. All right. For thyroid cancer, she's got genotypes for elevated risk of thyroid cancer. I think she was scoring above average for that. She must be scoring above average for thyroid cancer. Let's look that up in the file. Thyroid cancer. Yeah, she's scoring above average for thyroid cancer. Makes sense. All right. Let's go a little bit further. All right, for muscular dystrophy myopathy, she's got no risk variance for that. No risk variance for ADL, pretty good. She's quite healthy. One risk variance for color blindness in OP and one SW, all right, but women cannot be colorblind, so she's quite good. For FTO gene panel, she's got a predisposition to intermediate odds of obesity, so she's got some predisposition. Actually, no, she's got intermediate or lower odds of obesity, so she's quite good. She's got predisposition to intermediate or lower odds of obesity, so she's not even fat, not even fat at all. Lower odds of obesity, increase in risk of obesity. Yeah, pretty good. She's got all these genotypes that lead to lower odds of obesity. She's pretty good. For syncope panel, based on 2 SNPs, she's got a below average risk of syncope. For biotrace panel, let's think, what am I going to talk about here? Because there's so much information, I don't want to talk about everything. It's going to take up too much time. Let's see. She's got 2 copies of the hunter-gatherer CLT-CL1 gene variant, reduced ability to process carbs and sugars. How fitting. She's a hunter-gatherer and she's got 2 copies of the hunter-gatherer CLT-CL1 gene variant. So essentially, it's named so because it was proposed that it would probably help people who live a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Being unable to process certain foods, carbs and sugars, would probably help people who don't include carbs and sugars in their diets, such as people who hunt and gather. So that's why it was named the hunter-gatherer gene variant. So I guess for her, it's quite beneficial that she's a hunter-gatherer and she's got this genotype. So the implications of this is that it carries a reduced ability to process carbs and sugars. She's got a genotype for typical risk of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, Alzheimer's, and typical IL-2, IL-6 levels, whatever that is. All right. I'm going to skip all this. I don't really care about that. And for blood group panel, we're going to skip to the blood group panel. It looks like her blood type is type O. Definitely very interesting. So type O is the most common blood type. Most likely, if you're watching this video, your blood type is also type O. Most people have type O blood type. Type A, the prediction for type A is 25% likelihood. There's some likelihood of type A, of course. Sometimes you're going to have a prediction that says type O, but you still end up with type A blood type. That can happen. There's a 25% likelihood her blood type actually is type A as well, but most likely, like 3 out of 4 times when you see a sample like this, their blood type is going to be type O. So I'm going to go with the most likely scenario that her blood type is type O. Well, thanks for watching my video until the very end. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave a comment, suggestions, maybe what I should talk about, maybe what I should cut out of my videos, maybe what I should change, maybe what I should add well, the thing is, these suggestions for the next 10 days, I'm going to be making videos on these Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. The next 10 days is going to be Eastern hunter-gatherers from Sidelkino. That's what it's going to be. So maybe I will listen to your suggestions after those 10 days, but those 10 days, you know what it's going to be. The green eye hunter-gatherer, I'm not sure. Is it going to be, am I going to put, I don't even remember its gender, but am I going to put it in the end, or am I going to put it in the middle, or am I going to make a video on it like tomorrow? I don't know. I haven't, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I don't know. You know, it's, I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I'll probably make it in, I'll probably put the green eyes in the thumbnail with that sample. But thanks for watching. Make sure you check out my tools. Make sure you check out the description of the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.